Welcome back to season 2 of What's Your Story. I'm Leilani Langdon, your host. I am so excited to be back. Can you tell? Because I'm probably talking really loud. But I'm so happy to be back. It has been a long summer. End of season 1 was amazing. And we're jumping into season 2 with lots of energy. If you are new to the community, come on in and let me know you're here. Tell me hi. We already have people in the comments. If you are already part of the What's Your Story community, come on in and say hi. I've missed you guys so much, and I'm so excited that we get to be back together. Hey, Kirk, let's go. How's it going? Gio, oh my gosh, I missed you so much. Yes. Pam, Ryan, Leah, girl, love you. Marcy, how you doing, mama? So good to have you here. Kaladi representing. Yes, Ryan from Columbus. Man, it's so good to see you guys. Now, I just want to give a recap for those of you that might be watching for the first time and you are just joining our What's Your Story community and family. But last year, at the beginning of last year, I had a baby and I went through this journey and experience where I've decided that I needed to pursue my point of passion, and God was nudging me in that direction. And so this was birthed out of that experience. And so I just went into it. I didn't know what I was doing, but God just ordered all the steps, and we're here. We're here for season 2. If you don't know who I am, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm passionate about hearing people's stories, helping clarify their stories so that they can find purpose in them, so that they can be empowered by their own story, be inspired to know, own, and share it. And so that's why we're here. So, hey, Derek, what's going on? It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm just excited. I'm excited for another amazing season filled with people who are going to be courageous and who are going to share. And so a couple of house rules before we just jump in. You already know, if you're part of this community, that our community is a safe space. This is a judgment-free zone. We love, we encourage, we support, we uplift one another, and not just the people who are courageously sharing their stories. No, we uplift and encourage one another in the chats, right? So as we're having this conversation, as we are going in and diving deep, and as you're being inspired and challenged and moved, I want to hear about it. I want you to put it in the chat and connect with one another. And I'm also encouraging you to encourage one another. And so I'm so excited that we got that house rule out the way. And so I just want to let you know. The other thing I want to let you know is, as we're having this conversation tonight, and as we have Bryan share his story, I want to remind you that if questions come up about his journey, if you are moved to ask a question, well, how did you overcome this? Or what was this experience like? I want you to hashtag questions, hashtag question, and write your question down so that we can find it at the end. But I am just excited. Kirk, listen, I need to pull this one up because Kirk is... he is phenomenal in this space. He's, in a lot of ways, you've been a mentor through your videos and through what you do. So thank you. I'm taking in the compliments. I have learned a lot from you, and I'm just so grateful for what you're doing and what you're putting out. So if you ever need support and tech help, go over to Kirk Nugent's YouTube page and get help from him. I know for a fact that Leilani Lane always leads with house rules. Listen, don't break them. That's my husband. Listen, we're going to talk about that later. But anyway, guys, I am so excited to be here tonight. And why is this happening? Okay. But I just want to tell you a little bit about my summer. If you have a favorite memory of the summer or a highlight to your summer, drop it in before we bring on Bryan. I just want to share, it's been a long time. And one of the highlights of the summer was going to Canada. We hadn't seen Adrian's parents. For those of you who don't know, my husband is Canadian, and Canada was shut down, okay? Like locked down. They weren't letting anybody in or out. And so in August, they finally opened up. And after a year and a half of not seeing his parents, we got to cross the border and go into beautiful Canada and get to see his parents. They met Elijah, my son, who's now 11 months old, for the first time. And it was just an amazing... We have a lot of Canadians, man. We have a lot of Canadians. Yes. Yes. Brap, brap. I feel like I needed to do that with 2 fingers. Yes. So, Leah. Yes, girl. We came for a quick trip to see the in-laws. Yes, Kirk, anytime. But we had a wonderful time. And one of my, the best experiences and memories there this time around was we went to Niagara Falls. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm from the East Coast, but I'm biased. I feel like Niagara Falls is most beautiful on the Canadian side. So if we have any New Yorkers in the house, don't kill me, but Canada side of Niagara Falls is just gorgeous. I mean, you literally get the best of everything. And so I'm biased in that regard. But highlight was definitely having my parents. Yep. Me, third and final grant. Yeah. Final. Let's do emphasis on final. Derek says, I know we are excited because the show is back, but please take 5 seconds to hit that share button. Go ahead. Listen, one of the ways that you can support anybody who is doing live experiences and sharing content is to share. So thank you for that reminder. Oh, Claudia says, yeah, but when you go all the time, it becomes over Niagara Falls. It's just gorgeous. I don't know. It's just beautiful to me. I love being by water, and it was just an amazing time. And if you ever go to Niagara Falls, you have to stay at a hotel that gives you a view of the falls. We stayed in the Marriott, and like it was just breathtaking. I mean, we literally just sat in the hotel in front of the window for hours, and that's just what we did. Like it was like I don't need to walk around all these people. We just can sit and just have a full view of Niagara. So that was one of the highlights of my summer, and I'm just excited to be back and get ready into it. So we're just gonna go jump right in. If you have any other highlights of the summer, I would love to hear it. But go ahead and share, and we're gonna jump right in today. And I'm gonna bring Bryan on. Because it's been a while, I'm like relearning all of this. So Bryan, let's just make sure you can get on. Let's bring you on. Hey, there you are.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hey, Leilani, how you doing?
I am good. Are you laughing at me or with me? Which
No,
one?
I'm laughing with you. I'm laughing with you. We good. That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's so good to have you on, Bryan. And
Thank you.
so go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and where are you? Where do you live?
Yeah. So I'm first of all, I just want to reiterate, I did grow up in New York. I was born in Canada,
Hey,
but I
I
have
didn't
to.
know that.
You
You
didn't?
were
Oh,
born in Canada?
I was born in Montreal. Yeah, but like a year later, we moved to
Wow.
New York. So yeah, so it was actually easy when I crossed over to Calgary, where I am now, and they were like, "Welcome
Whoa.
back," and I was just like, "Oh, thanks."
Wait,
But
so which side of the falls are
what's up, Lottie?
you? Hey, what side of the falls is your favorite?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. I have to admit, the Canada side is definitely better. It's
Y-
not even a question.
Yeah, exactly. New York side has this little tiny bridge, like only five people
Yeah,
fit on. Like, how am I supposed to see the falls?
yeah.
Adrian
It,
is
it's because of the podcast, Adrian. You know,
yes.
I'm.
He's a podcaster, so he's
Oh
like
man,
extra ready. But Bryan, I'm so excited to have you here.
absolutely.
We are just one oh here we go, East Coast. Gio, we have some East Coasters.
Yes.
But hey guys, in the part of our community, go ahead and show Bryan some love. And just as a reminder before we get started, I just want to make sure that we're supporting one another. And again, if you have questions as he's sharing a story, go ahead and hashtag question with your question. Yes, Claudia said tiny bridge. But Bryan, without further ado, go ahead and tell us what's your story.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'll start by number one. I just want to start by shouting out my wife. My wife is amazing. Keziah.
Hey.
I love her so much. She's really been such a rock for me in everything
Hmm.
that we're doing, everything that I share with this story. Um, you know, it pertains also within our relationship, and so I always have to make sure that I share that first,
Yeah.
because this story wouldn't happen, number one, if it wasn't between our relationship, but also
Sure.
um, the growth that we've been able to have through that, through our story, is also amazing. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
I guess I'll share a little bit more about who I am, what happened, and everything of the
Yes.
sort. And so, Bryan St. Louis, once again, I'm a youth pastor in Canada right now, podcaster and everything of the sort. But my story once again stems from 1990 when I was born, or maybe before. But I
Right.
guess the one that shifted the way that I saw life, the way that changed my whole perspective, that really uh, had me to figure out what was next in life, was started back in 2016.
Hmm.
And so 2016, I remember so vividly. It was a year I had just gotten a promotion as well, to be the campus administrator, so basically the principal of this new
Hey.
school. And I was really excited. We were, things were doing were financially a lot better within our household. Um, I, it's funny. I don't normally talk about this part, but I guess I'll just throw it in.
Yeah, go for
I
it.
had also decided to leave the seminary because I was kind of
Hmm.
just like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, X, Y, and Z. I don't know if this is necessarily where I want to go.
Yeah.
I just had that talk with my father where I said, I don't
Mercy.
want to be a pastor anymore.
Woo.
And, this is like, I'm the
Listen.
last kid of five, the only one who went into pastoral ministry.
Wow.
And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, because I it took me a few months to tell him that I had left, and he told me, "I'm not mad that you left. I'm just mad that you didn't feel comfortable that you could actually tell me that." And when I heard him
Yeah.
say that, I was like, so it wasn't always about being a pastor this whole time. It was about this relationship that we had. So that
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
really changed a lot between me and my father. And so like our relationship has grown as well since then. But all that to say, now I just became this principal. I'm working within this school. It's called the Crossing in Indiana, and things were going so well. We got it. We moved into our new home, and and I'm starting school. Sorry, I wasn't a principal yet. I was starting. I was just started out working at that school, and so but it was still a higher paying job than what I was doing prior to. And so now it's about August, which is my birthday, August 2nd,
Eh.
and I come through to school. I'm working downstairs where I was in my class, and one of the students comes upstairs. he said, it's funny. He was like, "Hey, St. Louis," because they knew I was kind of the one that could deal with like the rougher students. Like, I think these kids is about to fight, and so I like jumped off my chair and then I like ran upstairs,
You were ready.
and I'm always ready. I'm always ready. I'm always ready. Actually, funny. Like my elder fell on the stage 2 weeks ago, and I just like jumped off my chair to make sure I helped him up.
Go
And
ahead.
yeah, I'm
That's
just
a good
yeah,
pastor.
just I'm trying to stay ready on that. But I come up to the front and I see my wife, and I'm like, clearly like there's no one here, like no fighting or anything. I see kids smiling. And I'm like, ah, crap, I forgot. I was like, my birthday. Sorry. So
Oh my gosh, they
yeah,
played you.
they played me hard. So I'm there. I'm excited. I'm like, oh man, So and the kids are just like now getting to know me, because I was only there for about a month, and so just spending time. It was a good birthday party. Everything was good. I thought that was it. So I was ready, and next thing you know, it's about 3 o'clock, and I'm ready to go home. So I get home, and my wife is all, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" And she was like, "Happy birthday! I have two presents for you." And one present had like this nice little box that looked very presentable. Looked,
Okay.
it was very meticulous and everything of the sort. And then you had another box that kind of looked a little dingy, and I was like, I don't really care for that one. So
Stop. Why do we do that? Why do we always do that? We
I
always
don't know.
go for the big shiny thing, right?
You know,
It's the little kid in us. It's the
it's
little
a
kid in
little
us.
kid in us, 100%, 100%. And so I grabbed the box, and both the same size once again, but just one just looked better.
Right.
And then in that was this beautiful watch, and I still have it to this day. It was beautiful. It was immaculate. I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this. It's amazing. I was like, how does it get any better?
Right.
It can't get any better.
Right.
And then she gives me this next box after I just played it, and she's just like, all right, here's this one. And so I'm opening up the box. I'm like, just kind of playing around. I was like, it's probably just like a little like gift card. I don't know what I thought in my head. And then I open it, and it was a rattle. And then like in my head, I was it took me a second to
Yeah,
like
you're
click,
right. Your brain's like,
and I
what
was
is
just
this?
like, and I started, I started shaking it. I was like,
Wait, you literally just like randomly started?
I started shaking. I was like, oh shoot, and then I just started laughing. I
Oh.
started laughing. I fell on the bed. Cause my emotions sometimes they don't always. Sometimes I laugh in, in serious situations. Go back to my wedding. That's another story. But I was I was just like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna have a child, and
Aw.
so I'm just I'm over the moon. I'm over the moon.
Aw.
This was literally the best birthday present I could have ever had.
Yeah.
And so my wife, she left the school, and she says something felt weird in her stomach or whatever, and then she said she went to go get the test, and so she found out that very day. So she found out that we're
Wow.
gonna have a child on my birthday, and so we all found out on the same day. So it's
Oh,
pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, and we just really fell into that moment.
of course.
Um, so this is August, and then basically October hit, and October, either end of October or early November, one of those two. And I had two dogs. I had one dog, and just to kind of preface for the rest of the story, one of the things that I realized about my story is that God kept talking to me in ways that I never really understood or saw that it would come this way. But He was so clear to making sure that wherever I was going, God was making sure to hold me down no matter what situation was going on. So I used that before I get to this next part. So I had two dogs, Duke or Bentley and Duke, and Duke was now he's fine. He's a little older now and everything of the sort. But he used to try to run away, and he sometimes would get into this like, little hole in my fence. And so one morning she was actually out of town. I think she went to Italy, um, and she was coming back that very day. And so I was in the morning. I was letting my dogs out like I normally do, but then I think a squirrel came, and Duke just ran after the squirrel, and Bentley ran after Duke. And so I'm like, oh shoot, man. So I put some clothes on real quick, and I'm jumping in my car, and I'm like looking for them. Well, at first I ran in the back to see if I could see them, because there was like woods, and sometimes they could connect somewhere else. So I couldn't find them. So I jumped in my car, went around, couldn't find them, and then I saw one of my dogs, like, and mind you, this is a pretty busy street in South Bend, but he shoots like right across my car. And so like I'm in traffic, and I literally stop my car, and I see him, and I jump out my car, and I grab him, I put him in. And so now I'm looking for the second one, and I couldn't find him. I couldn't find him, and I was just like, oh man, I couldn't find him. So it took me some time, and I called a few shelters. They told me, if they get a hold of it or anything of the sort, that they'll let me know. So I'm just like, okay, we're gonna figure it out. Hopefully, I get it soon. Um, and then like 20 minutes later, I get a call, and they told me that he got hit by a car and he didn't survive.
Ooh. Mm.
And like in that moment, because I was driving when I was still looking for him. I was driving, and I heard that like I had to pull to the side of the car or the road. Like my heart was just like aching, and like I felt so guilty, and just because I was like, man, like that was under my watch. I let him out, and so there was so
Mm.
much like guilt that dealt with the loss of my pet. Um, but when I had Duke in the car, and I was like mad at that too, but then I was just like, I
Yeah.
can't be mad. I was like, it's like at the end of the day, he's still a little puppy, like, so I
Yeah.
stopped even having that train of thought. But then something just kept coming to me, like, uh, at least you have one, at least you have one, like one was
Mm.
saved. At least you have one, at least you have one was saved. And I was like, yeah, but like at the end of the day, like I wanted my two dogs. Like I'm not.
Right.
It's not about at least having one, and that couldn't like for that. I don't know why that message just kept ringing in my head
Yeah.
for months. It just kept ringing in my head month after month. It just at
Mm.
least you have one. At least you have one. One was saved, and I was like, man, I was like, whatever. And so I was a little bitter about that, but you know, and more so, even more so at myself. But I kept it moving, and life kept going on. And my wife and I are expecting our first child,
Mm.
and so I'm just like, at least in my head, I'm like, I lost my pet, but I'm gonna have a daughter here in in a few months, because
Mm.
her due date was actually April 7th, which is our anniversary.
Oh
So it
wow.
literally just like it was like perfect. It was like, oh, find out
Yes.
on my birthday, and she's supposed to be due
On
on
your
my
anniversary.
anniversary on our anniversary.
Mercy.
I'm like, man, this kid is just amazing. Like it's just a beautiful, like beautiful story, beautiful story,
Yeah, timing and everything.
timing and everything. But as time came on, one of the things that I realized, number one, throughout this whole story is that nothing, like everything came so suddenly. There was nothing that ever gave us some sort of like, uh, I guess you would say, yeah, just something to give us like anticipation that there something could or something good or bad could happen, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um things just happen so suddenly. Um Now this is March, and I had gotten a position because my campus administrator had left, but he spoke so highly of me, and so I was given the role to take on as campus administrator. And so this was my first Wednesday to meet with everyone, with all the other campus administrators for the crossing in Indiana. And so this is Wednesday, March 15th. And as I'm going there, my wife gives me a call. She's like, "Hey, I'm not really feeling too great, but I'm just gonna rest up and stay home. But nothing's crazy. I think I'm okay." I'm like, "All right, cool." And mind you, nothing in our minds. There was no issues when we went to the doctors, anything of that sort. So
Everything was smooth.
everything was smooth, everything was perfect. I got a call around 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, yeah. And my wife was like, "Hey, I think I'm feeling like some labor pains, but it is really early. It's like 3 weeks earlier. But it could be Brixton Hicks. I think that's how you say it.
Braxton
Braxton
Hicks.
Hicks,
Yeah,
yeah.
where they feel like the real thing,
They
but
feel like the real thing, but it's not.
all right.
And I'm just like, excuse me, I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna come. And she was like, "No, you don't have to worry about that. I'm pretty sure it's just Braxton Hicks." I'm like, I think I'm gonna come
Just in case. Yeah,
just in
yeah,
case.
yeah.
And she's just like, "All right, well, if you, I'll text you in a bit or whatever." And I was like, "Okay, just text me." And then I was talking to one of my buddies there, and he was just like, "Bro, just go." And I was just like, "Okay, I'm not gonna wait for
That's
her
a
to
good
text
man.
me."
That's a good man.
Yeah, and so I just went in my car and left. I never forgot I was talking to my mom when I was in the car. She was like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "Man, I feel good." Like in my head, I was like, "Man, I feel like, you know what?" Yeah, I was just like, "I feel good." And I felt so calm. And I was just like, I don't know why I feel so calm, because this is not like this could be it. Like, baby could come out today kind of thing. And I was just
Right.
like, but I just felt so calm. And she was just telling me about like some stuff and making fun of me about how I was when I was in her belly and stuff like that. And I was just like, all right, cool, mom. I know I'm a problem child, and but we were having a really good conversation. I drove to my house. I grabbed our go bag, and I get to the hospital. And as soon as I get to the hospital, the doctor comes to me and says, "Hey, your wife is in this room, but we want to let you know that her blood pressure was, I can't even remember the exact number, but like 180 something over 120."
Wow. Wow.
And I was just like, okay, like in my head, I'm like, I don't remember the numbers kind of thing. So I was just like, okay, what does that mean? And she was
Right.
just like, these are the normal numbers, and this is where your wife is at. And so I was just like, okay. So I started feeling a little anxiety, but nothing crazy once again, because for me, typically, uh, I don't, I guess, react until something is signed sealed for sure.
Right. Like
So, like I
this is
know
what it is.
this
Yeah.
is what it is. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go check my wife. I'm like, how are you feeling? She's like, I'm feeling okay. They gave me this. I forgot what it was, but it was like to help to try to put down the blood pressure and
Blood
everything of
pressure.
the sort. She's feeling a little bit better. She's trying to go through the typical labor as it normally would. And because that was a plan, the plan was never to have a C-section. So she was just like, I really want to keep going with this labor. I was like, cool, cool, no worries, we'll make this work. So um, a couple of hours in, the doctors kind of come to me on the side and basically say, uh, you know, and you felt it. They basically said, without saying it, we're gonna have to do a C-section, and if we
Ah.
don't, then something could happen to both of them. And
Wow.
I was like, okay. So because I think I want to believe at that point they knew that she had preeclampsia. If I'm not mistaken, it was either
Mm.
at that point that they realized that she had preeclampsia, or it was still after. But still, they were realizing all of this, and
Something's
this is
wrong.
something's wrong.
Yeah.
And this is all happening at one time, and everything is
Wow.
happening that same day. So once again, nothing prior to. But in our minds, there's nothing wrong with the baby. There's
Right,
just
right,
something
right,
wrong with
right.
maybe the process.
Sure.
So my wife and I are just, I look at her, I start talking to her. I'm like, hey, this is what it is, X, Y, and Z. And she's just like, I really wanted to do this naturally. I was like, no worries. I was like, babe, it doesn't make you any less, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
And she's
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, cool. So she signed the papers, and she was willing to go through the C-section.
Hmm.
Um, so once again, this is March 15th, 2017. Um, so now she goes into the emergency room. I get pulled into the side, uh, where like you wash your hands and everything of the sort. And I
Mm-hmm.
was gonna get ready to go. I got a call from one of my students. Really, I was really close with most of my students, but like some of them were even closer than I.
Yeah.
He calls me. He says, "Hey, is a baby there yet?" I was like, "Hey, no worries, not yet, but I'll shoot you a picture as soon as she comes out." And
Mm.
he was like, "Okay, okay, St. Louis, thanks, man." Um, so I wash my hands. I get ready, and I go in, and I'm holding Keziah's hand, and I decided to actually watch the whole procedure, because to me, I was like, if she can go through this, I don't know,
Wow.
mentally, it was just like, okay, if she can go through this, I could watch it. And so
Woo.
I literally watched the whole C-section
Wow.
and like everything. And it was kind of crazy, but like I didn't like feel
Get
any type of
queasy or
way about. No,
anything?
it was just like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready. Like this, if my wife can go through this,
Okay.
like what, watching it, that's nowhere close to
Right,
what
that's no
what
right.
that is. So
That listen, that's a fact, okay? I can
yeah.
testify.
So I'm sitting there, um, and sorry, sometimes even recounting the story, sometimes it could bring memories. But
Of course.
uh, I'm sitting there, and once again, nothing in my head is saying that there's an issue with the baby. It's just the procedure.
Hmm.
And they pull her out, and I'll never forget. She like breathed, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I started like tearing
Hmm.
up because I was so happy. I was like, "Yo, I'm a father,"
Wow.
and like, um, yeah, I was like, "I'm a father," and I started looking at the whole story. I thought about everything just in that moment, and I was so
Yeah.
happy. And then like I was waiting like 5 seconds because you hear the baby cry,
Yeah.
but I never heard her cry, and so I was just like, "Why is she not crying?"
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and so it was about like 2 minutes in, and I was just like, okay, well, it's it got to be something. I'm just kind of I'm getting in my own head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then it was when my wife asked me. She was like, "Hey, Brian, I haven't heard her yet," and that's when I looked at her. I said, "Everything's gonna be okay." And at that moment, I knew but mind you, she's on like morphine or whatever it was
Yeah.
that she's on, that they put her in. I knew that something was clearly off, and it was no longer just a procedure or like the surgery, whatever the case may be. It was something wrong with Cornelia. Um, and I started I started questioning. I was like, man, am I in a movie? Like, is this real?
Mm.
Like, I
Man.
literally felt like I started watching myself from another area,
Woof.
and I
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
looking at me and the whole situation. It almost felt like an out of body experience, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I feel like this is a movie. I feel like somebody's trying to play my life right now. Thank you,
Yeah.
Claudia. I was just like something. So I was just like, all right. At that moment, it's like my mind just got clear. I was like, okay, they're working on her. Nothing is set in stone. So I just started praying,
Wow.
and I started praying, started praying. I started singing. Um,
Hmm.
because you hear these stories of people singing and praising,
Yeah.
and like something happens. So
Praise your way
I started
through. Yeah,
praising my
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah,
through it. So
yeah.
I started literally singing "Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus."
Oof.
Um, and then my wife kept asking me like, Bryan, I don't like what's going on. What's going on? I was like, babe, don't worry. Like everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like um, I was like, God is good. Like, and I just kept reassuring her, and 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes. I started singing louder. I was like, maybe, I gotta, and mind you, like this whole time, um, and I tell people this because like I wouldn't wish this. I don't have any enemies, but I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy because like this
Mm.
whole time you're looking to your right and you're watching someone trying to pump back life into
Oof.
a baby. It was just like it was like that's not what we're supposed to see.
Wow.
So 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and then it was 45. And I saw the nurse stop and she started crying. And then the doctor stopped. And then um like everyone just pretty much stopped. And so I sat there and I was like, I got my answer, like I knew what happened. Um the doctors were gonna come and tell my wife and I right there what was going on. And I was just like, I looked at them, I was like, just hold on one second. Knowing everything that's going on. And they were like, okay. And then my wife was like, they were putting her back on the cart. Oh no, sorry, she never left the cart. They were just fixing her up. And then they were gonna cart her away, and she was like, Bryan, can you bring the baby? I was like, babe, I'm gonna bring the baby. Everything's gonna be okay.
Hmm.
And I saying everything was gonna be okay, even though I knew she passed away,
Yeah.
that was only a matter of faith at that point because I already knew like our whole world had just crashed, and it was just a matter of
Hmm.
what was going to be next.
Yeah.
But I still believed. I was like, everything's still gonna be okay. I never forget the door closed, and then like I cried like the door closed, and
Hmm.
immediately as soon as the door closed and she was away from the room, I just cried a cry I can't ever replicate. And it just broke me
Wow.
spiritually, mentally, physically, everything. It was just I just couldn't, I didn't know what to do. Um, and I remember I walked over to Cornelia, and I grabbed her up, and basically like her body was still warm and everything of the sort. But I remember just vividly saying, "Yo, God, I still trust you,"
Hmm.
and just like crying into her. Um, so I ended up actually like bringing her into Keziah's arms, and Keziah like, well, first of all, they tell Keziah, or no, I tell Keziah this is what happened, and then she started crying, and
Hmm.
then I put her into her arms, and then like she she just stops crying, and then she starts like smiling. She's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, she's so beautiful," and I was just like, "What?" And like that, like it broke me even more
Oh my
because I was like,
gosh.
well, "How is she? Like, how did that? Like, how was she able to say that in that moment?" And
Mm, my
I was
goodness.
so everything about it was just so. I don't, yeah, I don't even know sometimes, man. I don't even know sometimes. I mean, I laugh. Like I say,
Yeah.
sometimes I laugh because it just helps me
Yeah.
to keep it on. But yeah, it was such a it was such a broken period of my life, that only forced me to choose two paths. I had to
Interesting.
choose either if I was going to allow this to like break me completely
Wow.
and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
fall
yeah.
into my pain, or if I was going to be able to find purpose through this pain.
Wow.
And like I mean, trust me when I say this did not happen perfectly, but I just kept every day I kept asking myself, how am I going to find purpose through this? And that, a lot,
Wow.
and I'll say this, so it comes back now to the experience with my wife. Now my wife is battling for her life for the next 5 days because of the
Wow. Wow.
preeclampsia.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it was like some sort of severe. I forgot the exact name, but it was like a severe sense of
Form.
form of preeclampsia, and she almost died that day. And like
Wow.
two, I want to say at least 2 days in between, they were monitoring her heavily, and then afterwards, she was okay. But then the thought, oh, at least you have one. At least you have one. One was saved.
Mm.
And I was just like, you got to be kidding me! Like, like that's
Right.
like
It's
that's what it
maddening.
like that's what really came to my mind
Yeah,
at
yeah,
that
yeah.
moment. And I mean, it started like to make sense. And I don't know if it necessarily made me feel better, but at least it started to make just it started to give me a sense of understanding. Because
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
was just looking at it, I was like, my wife is alive. I could have
Yeah.
lost both of
Woo.
them that very day. I
Yeah.
could have lost everything that I literally loved, almost like I don't
Yeah.
want to say
Yes.
everyone, but like this is my
Yes.
family, the family that
Yes.
I chose, not the family that
Yes.
chose me. Um,
Hmm.
I would have lost everyone in one moment. And I said to myself, man, at least I have my wife,
Mm. Wow.
and it like I mean, praise God, right now we have our son Levi, and
Yeah.
and we're also expecting another one for
Hey.
Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, what a gift, literally.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's Christmas, but like
It's
he's
around that
supposed to
time.
be born January 6th, but
Oh,
because it's a C-section, he has to be 2 weeks prior to.
got it.
So it might be a Christmas baby, might whatever. We'll
Hey, yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
But um, that whole experience, what we went through, and I'll add on to this, like that time, I'm never like there were people who were supposed to be there for me that weren't.
Mm.
People who said things about me. Like I literally had someone say, I won't say who, but someone said, you left the ministry. That's why that happened to you.
Wow.
Um,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah. I had uh, what else? I mean, and then the other aspect is being a father. Oh, you don't understand your wife's pain. She carried this child for
Hmm.
9 months. You have to be there for her. You have to be there for her. And I was questioning like who the heck is going to be there for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even at the funeral, like I spoke at the funeral, and like everyone was just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're so strong." Blah blah blah. I can't believe you did that. That's so amazing. That's so amazing. And I was just like, guys, like, like yes, it's nice to hear that, but like, I felt dead inside.
Hmm.
Like I was walking like my wife, God. I was writing in my journal, but like I was smiling with people, but like I legit just felt like I just wanted to die.
Wow.
Um, there
Mm.
was
So real.
I don't know if people ever heard that. I actually just found this out recently. But they say that a lot of accidents, car accidents, are actually not accidents. They're actually purposeful that individuals get
Wow.
into. And the reason why I bring this up is because there was a few times that I wanted to just throw my car into
Mercy.
whatever was in front
That's
of me.
real. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I just kept telling myself, I was like you have to be there for all these kids
Mm.
that are looking at you as an example. Your wife needs you. And number two, I mean, like you still have. I mean, number three, like God. it's still your everything in your life. And so these are things that I just kept repeating into
Constantly.
my. I
Wow.
had to every single day, every single moment, I had to keep telling myself. I had to keep telling myself. Um, my kids, my when I say my kids, my students, they're freaking amazing. They bought me a dog
Oh.
through this whole experience.
Oh my gosh.
It was just amazing. But now because of that, like I poured everything into my work, and so like
Mm.
I'll tell you, I was there sometimes 3 4 hours after, just doing extra things that I probably didn't have to do, but I
Keeping
needed
yourself
to stay
busy.
busy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My wife was working until 5 6 o'clock, and so I was just like, and this is like about a month later, mind you. But and so I had to make sure that I wasn't home by myself, and so I was doing everything that I can. Instead of coming
Wow.
home at 3 o'clock or 3:30, I was getting home at 6 7 o'clock, just doing things, doing things. And then it kind of comes back into just about a week before I went to, yeah, just about a week before school was about to end. This was a Wednesday, and I was gonna buy a gun. And I was supposed to buy a gun like before, like I was gonna buy a gun. This is Indiana. And I was just like, I've been shooting
Yeah.
guns for like 3 years. I was ready, and I already knew exactly which one I was gonna get: a Steyr M9 XYZ. Like I was ready to go. I had the money. I was just like, yeah, I need to finally get my gun, man. Um, and then so I go to the store, and the guy's like, I think it was like 550, and he was like, if you pay with cash, you'll only get you won't have to pay some sort of tax. So I think it'll come down to $500. I was like, all right, cool. So I ended up driving to the ATM, and all I kept hearing was, "Don't buy the gun, don't buy the gun, don't buy the gun." I was like, "What the heck?" I'm like, "Yo,
Hmm.
come on, man!" Like I'm like, and I thought it was like financially, like stop spending stupid money, and I was just like,
This was
man, I
like a
feel
feeling, like
no. It's like when I tell you, it felt like it was audible.
audible.
Like I felt like I was
Wow.
audibly hearing someone saying, "Don't buy
Wow.
the gun, don't buy." I was just like,
Woo.
I was like, whatever, man. I was like, I don't care. I'm gonna buy this gun. I go to the ATM, and like I pull out I'm ready to pull out the money, and I pull out the money, and I go out to the bank. And mind you, it was right across the street. So I end up going straight to the side of the street. I'm about to make a left to go back to the store. And I just kept hearing, "Don't buy it." I was like, all right, I'll just buy it tomorrow. And so I make a
Mm.
right and I go home. I ended up not buying a gun. Um, and then because I was other things were happening, so I was just like, whatever, I'll buy it later. My wife went to Antigua for a week for one of her best friend's weddings. Um, and school had just finished. So they graduated. This was a Saturday. Yeah, they graduated on a Saturday, and then so started Sunday, and I was just by myself for the first time in a long time. And it kind of like I really like I always tell people like, yo, man, if you know someone who's going through some stuff, like just keep checking up on them because you never know
Yeah.
what might be
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
yeah.
And that week, so Sunday, I felt like I literally sat on the couch watching The Office all day Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and
Mm.
Wednesday.
Mhm, mhm.
And then Wednesday came, and for the first time, I had a suicidal thought, and I was just
Wow.
like, and I guess actually thinking about it now that I've recounted this story, I guess I didn't because I had a few thoughts before while I was driving, so I guess it wasn't my first.
Sure.
But it was the first one that felt so vivid because
Mm.
I was just crying. I was such in pain, and I was just telling myself, I was like, man, this pain needs to end,
Wow.
and I just wish I could shoot myself in the head. That's what I said to myself.
Wow.
And then as soon as I said that, or as soon as I thought that, I was like, you catch it, you realize it, and then I just started crying more,
Mm.
and I just started praying to God. I was like, yo, God, help me, man, because I can't do this
Yeah.
without you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it was at that moment that I realized the "Don't Buy the Gun" was
Mm.
for that moment the week prior to. And
Wow.
so like it was just line after line. I just
God
kept
is
hearing how
amazing.
God just kept making sure that things were were tight, and he was just making sure that he kept preserving me through
Ooh.
everything. And then all of this was going on. My wife and I, I told her when she came back, and I ended up, we talked about it and everything of the sort. And she was so supportive. She was so amazing. Helped me through. We talked through things. I was helpful for her. We talked through things that she went through and everything of the
Yeah.
sort. But I don't tell her story in that sense because that's hers to tell.
Sure.
But one of the things that we actually said to each other, I remember we were driving, and like, I told her, I was like, hey, let's spend like 6 months, and like, don't take this wrong, but I was like, don't let's spend like 6 months where we don't hurt each other in any way, shape, or form. Like, we don't raise our voice at each other. We don't do
Mm.
anything like not like we were ever abusive or anything to each other, but like it was
Sure.
very intentional. And that's one of the things that was so beneficial for our relationship. We communicated so much. And so there's never a time that I go back to that point of time in my life that I say, man, my wife hurt me in this, or I feel pain and I think about my wife, or she
Mm.
feels pain and she thinks
Wow.
about me. So we were very intentional to making sure that things went so well in that
Yeah,
period of
yeah.
time that we were there for each other. And then I guess to end off this story, just to show just how God just kept preserving us through all of this. um, I started even drinking in that period of time. I want to say this was I started probably in like May, and
Mm.
it wasn't like I was like drinking to like get drunk, but I just didn't care. I stopped caring,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Stopped caring
The
about a lot of
grief.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time somebody was asking, like, they saw me go to a store and like buy something. They were like, Brian, and I was like, what the heck do you care? Like, I don't care. And like that's where my
Mm.
life was.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so it was July. It was the end of July, or sorry, second week of July, and I'll never forget this because this kind of like kick started like how I chose to continue to move on, and
Yeah.
also my relationship with God. Um, this was a week before school was going to start, and all I heard was, "Hey man, are you good?"
Mm.
And like when I don't know, this is weird. I feel like God was just very audible with me
Wow.
through this time. But He said, "Are you good?" And I heard it like it was clear as day. And I said to myself, I said, "Yeah, I think I'm okay." And then all I heard was, "Okay, I think you need to stop drinking then." Excuse me,
Mm.
because it's time for you to be an example for others.
Wow.
And so like I was getting back into the school, and to me I was just like, I can't be teaching because this is also like a place where I could teach about Christianity and everything of the sort as well. And so I was just like, this can't be a place where I do this while still living a life complete, not completely different, but just a life where I didn't feel connected to God in that sense. And
Yeah.
so I have to be an example. Um, and some people could say, man, well, is it that you felt like you always had to do something for someone else and be there for someone else, and you never really took care of your own grief? And, it's a possibility. But God knows me,
Yeah.
and when He said that, I stopped. Like, that was my last. Well, no, I wouldn't say my last. I drank on my one of my friends' weddings, and that was it. But it was like it was a toast type of thing.
Sure.
But that was it. That was like my last moment of using that as a grief point,
Coping mechanism.
coping
Yes.
mechanism. Yeah,
To self medicate, to soothe the
exactly,
pain. Yeah.
exactly. And ultimately, like, when people ask me, what does my story really bring out of it, because you might ask yourself, man, that wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't like such an amazing
Yeah.
end to what happened. You lost your daughter. You lost a bit of your sanity at one point. I mean, you gained it back, but that. I mean, you're alive now. There's things that you're doing now, but like from that point to July, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's still so happy. And I always tell people, I'm like, man, God literally showed himself in a way that I've never felt before.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, 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 yeah.
when I put my daughter in the grave, and when I tell you, I never fully understood the text where it says, He'll give you peace. The peace of God will surpass all
Yes.
understanding. I had never fully grasped that until that moment. Because when I
Wow.
tell you there was a
Wow.
hug that I felt from God,
Mm.
like I literally felt like there was a warm hug that He gave me, and I was
Wow.
at peace. And I remember I walked in the car and I asked my wife. I said, "How do you feel?" I didn't tell her, "Are you at peace?" I said, "How do you feel right now?" And she said, "I don't know how, but for some reason I feel at peace."
Wow.
And so
Oof.
if there's anything that I always say that came from the story is that God really made himself so evident in the midst of my storm, in the midst of our storm. And he made it so clear that he is truly there with us. And one of
Yes.
the things I gotta always tell people at the end of the day, yo, I'm gonna see her when that time comes. And
Yes.
so for me, even though I have to live with that grief, I
Yeah.
still live with the blessed hope, knowing that one day when Jesus comes back, the dead in Christ shall rise. And so I'm going to see my little
Yes.
girl
That
again. So
promise.
that's a promise. Yeah.
That promise. I loved how you talked about when we go through a difficult experience or a moment of a defining moment, a catalyst that literally we know is going to change our lives. Like you were like, I have a decision to make. I either seek purpose or I'm gonna wallow in the pain and I'm gonna lose myself in the pain.
Yeah.
What did your story inspire you to do now? Right? Where are you now, and how did you come from that? And that's, I guess, a question, two questions in one, right? Because
Yeah.
how did you come? Yeah.
I mean, so one of the things once again was the fact that, God was very evident and he was very clear in how he wants in his discussion with me. And
Yeah.
so um in all of that, right? Uh I was asked to go into pastoral ministry. This was in December of that same year, 2017, and I
Wow.
said no because I was like, I didn't think that that was my life, and I would never go just because someone told me. Like, now that I'm thinking about
Yeah.
it, I would never go just because someone told me, "Oh, I think you let this happen because of that." No, I didn't even care about that. But when I had asked if he wants me to go, I said no. The person asked me, I said no. That's not for me anymore. Long story short, I prayed, I fasted for 5 days, um, and I asked God. I said, if you want me to go into pastoral ministry, you're gonna tell me on March 15th, 2018.
Mm.
Um, days, months went by, months went by. Long story short, like when I tell you the answer was so clear that He gave
Wow.
me four different things to be clear as to why He wants me to go. On March 15th, not March 14th, not March 16th, March 15th of
Mm.
2018.
Wow.
And so I used that as a mode of purpose. I mean, like when I tell you I started using everything as a mode of purpose, I was doing Uber driving before. I was Ubering and I was talking to people. I was that Uber
Wow.
driver that was
Oh
actually
gosh.
talking to
Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah.
That was and like but like legit people were like, "Man, like yo, you have." They're like, "Man, there's something about you, man." Like thank you for
Wow.
that. Like I remember I even took someone to Applebee's because they came super late and they were coming from Germany, and like I used whatever movement or whatever thing that
Oof.
I
Yeah, yeah,
could to
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
to just continue to move in a way that was loving, that was caring for everyone
Yes.
else around me. Because for me, it was like, yo, people are dealing with so much crap and so much pain in this world. You
Yes.
never know who's dealing with what. So how can you show more love? And so
Yes.
that's basically how can you show more love to people was my purpose statement. And so I started using that
Wow.
in everything that I do. I use that in the church that I'm in right now. Literally, one of our ministries, I kind of took fusion from Andrew's. I ain't gonna lie, uh,
We
but
all have at some point,
but
so that's
like
not
but
even a.
but like the whole thing was about bringing people together, because that's what they
Yeah.
wanted. So I was like, all right, well, fusion works pretty great. So I was like, hey, fusion,
Right.
and then our tagline is love on purpose. Um,
Mm.
and so like literally everything that is for life right now at this moment is just how can we love people on purpose? How can we
Yeah.
be better to those around us and really show them the love of Christ? I mean, even my podcast is focused on reaching people, showing the positivity of this world, and how can we be better. And then I'm hoping up also to launch a new center that's helping with like youth mentorship in order to help
Wow.
them understand like what's already your successful future and just helping you to get there.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and the whole concept is just being able to help them to move forward in purpose and passion. And so, like, I have a few things that God has helped me
Wow.
help guide through. But
Yes.
ultimately, it was the main question was always, how can I love someone better? How can I be there for someone
Mm,
else?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. And mining purpose out of every situation. And I think that's such a takeaway for so many of us. It's you can choose to literally mine purpose out of everything. I mean, you talk about the Uber being an Uber driver and literally
yeah,
being able to
one
pour
hundred
into
percent.
others and show love, and so many of us make excuses as to why we can't live on purpose because we don't have enough of this or we don't have enough of this or we don't have this set up. When it's like, no, what's in front of you? What have you been given, and
Mm,
how can you use your story to continue to live on purpose? I absolutely love that. I want um first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge some of the people in our community that have shared. We have Gio, who lost her mom. Alma, who lost a baby girl. She says she lost her baby girl, and she's just
mercy.
hopeful to see her again someday. Grief is such a real thing, and first
Yeah.
and foremost, I just want to just thank you so much for your courage and your bravery, because I think somebody said it in the comments earlier. We don't get to hear the men's perspective. We don't get to
Mm,
see what you go through, right?
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you, as much as your wife, right, experienced this pain and it was
Mm,
real, right? And I think Adrian said, in many scenarios like this, feel like they have no place to put their
yeah.
pain.
That's
You know
one
what I
hundred
mean?
percent.
And so it's like, what do you do? So like I think a question that I have for you is, what would you tell, right, the men who are listening, right? Like, what do you do now that you are, on the other side of it? And obviously we grieve, right? We remember, and that will always, there always be a part of you that will feel some pain. But what would you tell somebody who's experiencing something like this, specifically a man, in regards to how to go through this process?
Yeah, 100%. Number well, before I even answer that, I want to flip back to the other point before that, which is, uh, I mean, if you're hearing this, you're most likely a part of the choir, but don't ever assume that you know men don't feel certain things
Yeah.
comparatively to a woman, because at the end of the day, like we might. What I think Adrian said, we might not feel it physically, um, because of that moment, but at
Yeah.
some point you will still feel it physically, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, 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 yeah.
the emotional and mental toll
Right.
will destroy your spirit. And I remember like I
Yes.
had high blood pressure for the first time in my life. I was like, what the heck is that?
Wow.
Like like I almost had to go to the emergency, and I was just like, what? I was
Wow.
like,
The
yo, what
physical
is
manifestation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
physical manifestations?
Of the pain.
But as a man, number one, seek help. Like
Yeah.
be willing to talk to someone about this. I didn't do that as much as I could. Um, I also like I wish sometimes I just wish like I had more of this edge where I could just like unload, but I also didn't want, especially my friends. I was like I didn't want them to have to deal with me in that sense, because it
Mm.
was always like, oh well, Brian, he could always if anyone could take this as him. That's the whole thing that I kept hearing. So I was just like, and some people would even say, oh man, I don't know how I would deal with this situation. Like, thank God that this didn't happen to me, because I don't know what I would do. And I was just like,
Wow.
and like, oh, you're a stronger man because you're able to go through this. And I was just like, okay. And I was just like, all right, well, I probably can't really talk to that person about
Right.
this either. And so, um, but find someone who you can really just pour into, or
Yeah,
you could
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
pour out to, talk to someone, go to counseling if you need to. Um, reach out, because you can't let that muster within. You can't let that
Yeah.
pain muster within. And that almost happened to me. And who knows what could have happened if God wasn't very strong with how He spoke to me. So definitely number one, seek help. But then also, I guess, as I'm thinking about it too, just be willing to let yourself grieve. I I,
Yeah.
I don't know
Yes.
if that really makes sense, because some people, they, like, once again, they might think that it's not his place.
Yeah.
But man, it is, as for anyone who's gone through something like this, or anyone who's gone through pain and it feels like they shouldn't have to grieve. Like, yo, let yourself grieve, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you any less of a man. It doesn't make you any less of a human being. Let yourself grieve, and be able to express these emotions, be able to express
Yes.
what is going
Yes.
on in your mind, because through that expression, will you be able to understand the full grasp of what is happening
Yeah.
around you. And that's the only way to truly find healing.
Yes.
So, and
I
it's
love
not to
that.
say don't go into, like, don't go weightlifting, or finding ways to spend time away from certain things as well. Finding healthy things to be a part of, and or maybe
Yeah.
reading a book. It's not to say don't do those things, but don't allow those things to also block the healing process, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
now,
yeah.
oh, I do this in order for me not to feel.
Yes.
And that, because that's dangerous. It's
Yeah.
very dangerous. And so I always tell people, man, take the time to mourn, take the time to grieve,
There's no
speak to someone.
timeline.
Yeah, and just let allow yourself to heal, because as you heal, you know um it'll be better for you. If you're with your wife, it'll be better for your relationship with her, and everything of the sort. Because I thank God, because I know a lot of couples, they they don't make it after something like that.
Yeah.
um
Absolutely.
Derek, you're right, bro. um
It's
and
true. It's true. There's so many men that go through pain, and not just as a result of a loss of a child, which is such a deep sense of grief, but anything, right? Loss of a parent. I mean, the loss of a marriage, loss
yeah, yeah,
period has the ability to break you. And I love what Kirk says here, right? Like, if you need to, when you experience what you've gone through, counseling should be a normal response. And the reality is that stigma is still there, right? That
yeah,
that
fair
that it's
enough.
like, no, like, it should be normal. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
you're grieving, here are the next steps, right? Talking to someone is important. You're absolutely right. And I love that you said
100%.
that it manifests itself physically, because our bodies are only meant to contain so much, right? Our bodies experience what we don't express. And
Mm.
so, absolutely. He says, this is Bryan St. Louis. He had to make sure he said, oh, and FY, oh, like, listen, I'm gonna throw this in. You were actually into bodybuilding. Sidebar. This
I,
is like
I
a
was, yeah.
so that's funny that he
I
said
was.
that. But yes, Claudia,
Yeah.
we have to remove the stigma. And Brian,
Yeah. And
I
you know
think,
what? That's
yeah,
real
go
though,
for it.
because even in my statement, the stigma was still there. If you need to. So Ken,
Kirk, yeah.
Kirk, no disrespect at all. Clearly, that's fine, because even in the way that I said that, I
Yeah.
still had that
There's
stigma.
still
It's
apprehension.
the apprehension of going to get help.
Yes.
It's like that should
No.
be an immediate response when you go through something like that. Everyone should, you
Absolutely.
should. It's not even if you need
A
to
question.
go get help right away. So
Absolutely.
100%, that's a good statement that he made as well.
Absolutely. The one of the last things I want to say too is, that to anybody who's listening, God is absolutely amazing, and he, like, your story embodies the truth that God is an ever-present help, right? Like,
100%. Yeah.
he consistently was speaking to you. And I love that this story removes this false idea that God cannot speak to you when you're in your mess.
Hmm.
Okay, when you're
Yep.
in the depths of the lowest of lows, right? Like when you are trying to drown out, like God can make it through that, right? God can
Mm.
make it through you trying to self-medicate yourself, right? So that you don't
Yeah,
feel it.
100%.
And he, like,
100%.
the fact that you would hear the Holy Spirit telling you not to buy this gun in anticipation that God knew that you would have this moment
Hmm.
where you would want to actually take your life is just
Yeah.
incredible. And I think it just speaks to the calling and the favor that's over your
Mm.
life and the purpose that God still needs you to carry out on this earth. And so
Mm.
I want to just encourage you to continue to walk in faith and continue to walk in what God has for you, because this is real, right? He
Yeah.
needs you to reach out and he needs you to live that purpose. What is it? Love on purpose.
Love on purpose. Yeah.
He
Love on
needs you to
purpose.
love on purpose the way that he's been loving on you. And I'm just so
100%.
grateful that you came on here. Yes, we need to absolutely continue this conversation. Bryan, thank you so much for your courage and your bravery. Guys in the chat, let's send some love to them as they not only just continue to raise their little beautiful baby. Their son is so adorable. Oh my gosh. I kind of low-key wish that he was going to make an appearance because I'm like, he's so cute.
You know he always does though, but it's 'cause
Oh my.
but he's yeah.
Yes,
I think
but
he stayed
and
upstairs this time.
yes, well, and
Yeah.
then we're praying for your wife and you guys as you
Yes.
welcome
Yes.
a new baby coming in. But
Thank you.
again, just want to thank you for your story, and I know that it has inspired and challenged not just the people who are listening, but the people that will listen, as well
Mm.
as the men to actually break the stigma, not just on counseling, but also doctors. I was about to say, y'all got men. You guys gotta get to the doctor. Okay, get your physical every year. But thank you
Mercy.
for sharing your
And
story.
and thank you for this platform. I must say, like,
Yes,
you have an amazing platform here. What's Your Story Live is
thank
amazing. It's
you.
truly helpful to many people already from what I've seen. And
Yes,
just really want to say thank you, Leilani, for opening up this
yes,
space for me to be able to share, and also for others to be able to listen and share
yes.
throughout their stories as well.
Absolutely. Bryan, I don't want to miss the opportunity for you to share your podcast because it's absolutely incredible what he's doing. So tell us where we can find it, what the title is, and tell us about it real
Yeah,
quick.
just real quick, it's Madcasters. If you type in at on Instagram, is at madcasters.com. Make a difference casters podcast. Somebody took Make a Difference podcast, so I had to try to figure out something else. So Make a Difference casters on iTunes, Apple, Spotify, Google, anywhere
All
pretty
the
much, and that's
platforms.
all
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
platforms. But you could definitely find us on Instagram. Typically on Facebook, I don't share too much on there, but Instagram for sure. And then our website is madcasters.com. You'll be able to find us all from
And
there as well.
tell us a little bit about what the concept of the
Yeah,
podcast
so
is.
the concept basically is like it's a ultimate guide for you to understand how to make a difference. And so I bring on uh, people and organizations from different walks of life. So they're not only Christian, but uh, these are individuals who are actively looking to make a difference in the world around them, in their
Mm,
communities, and to enact some positive change. So you have people who speak on, like, let's for instance, issues within race. I have Danny Ludman, who's talked about recidivism in America, and his
mm,
organization is to bring down the percentage of reincarceration in America.
wow.
Marky Williams, who was human trafficked and is now
Wow.
a advocate against human trafficking. I have individuals who focus on finances and how that could
Yeah,
change the
yeah, yeah,
scope of,
yeah,
of
yeah.
life and change the scope of the world around us. And just my latest episode for anybody who's looking to do like nonprofits, or they need grants and
Yeah, yeah.
charities. Libby Hyken, she built this whole website, grantwash.com, that helps people in North America be able to find the right grants, write the right grants, and everything of the
Love
sort. So
it.
it's a wide array of
Love
those
it.
who are
Yeah,
making
yeah,
a
yeah.
difference and
And living
active
on
and live.
purpose.
Yeah, they're living on purpose. There you go.
I
Living
love
on purpose.
it.
Yeah,
I love it.
actually might
Well,
change that now.
hey, look at you getting inspiration from this show. But
That's awesome.
again, Bryan, thank you so much. I'm excited to see what you continue to do. Guys, go support, go share, go show some love. And Bryan, I'm gonna go ahead and send you backstage.
Thank you
See
again,
ya.
guys.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 1 of What's Your Story, the start of season 2. I just want to encourage you to continue to move forward, to find purpose in the midst of your pain, to live and breathe each moment on purpose. I'm just so grateful for Bryan's story and how it's challenged even me to consider my everyday and say, well, I know God is in it. What can I do to love on purpose, to pour into people? Yes, hashtag purpose through pain. I'm so excited to tell you about next week. We have Kayla Sanchez coming to share her story of her daughter and how she grew and how that her story inspired her to now own an amazing business that she has. So I'm excited to come back, share and support. There's a couple ways you can support What's Your Story. You can support simply by sharing, making sure that others are hearing these stories so that they can be inspired to know, own, and share their own stories. You can always support by subscribing to the YouTube channel to help get more people connected. And if you want to support financially, go ahead and do that. You can cash out What's Your Story, a donation of any amount, so that we can continue to actually bring this platform to you. But as always, I just want to remind you that your purpose is found in knowing, owning, and sharing your story. And so the question is, are you ready to share your story? I'll see you next week for episode 2.